Lee Summit is your destination for big city vibes and small town charm.
Head to the downtown Lee Summit Farmers Market, where local meets fresh. Then grab a cup of coffee and discover a variety of shops and boutiques just around the corner. Continue the fun in downtown Lee Summit at a retro arcade bar. Discover your new beer at one of our 6 locally owned breweries. Cool off with some handcrafted cocktails at happy hour. End the night with live music and good company. Lee Summit, Missouri.
Hello, Lee Summit. Here's your flash briefing for the week of October 9th, and we have a lot going on this month. The city of Lee Summit is hosting a blood drive today from 10 to 4 at the city's maintenance facility located at 1971 Southeast Hamblin Road. The Community Blood Center says now more than ever is the time to donate. Find a link to register on our Facebook page at City of LS. Walk-ins are welcome. City Council meet for regular session Tuesday night at 6 in Council Chambers in City Hall. If you can't watch, quickly catch up on City Council meetings by subscribing to the Council Debrief newsletter, which breaks down 3 to 4 key agenda items. Subscribe at cityofls.net. Sweep the Summit is October 14th. Help tackle litter and debris on our streets and in our streams. Volunteer for one of 2 environmental activities, Street Clean or Stream Team. Recycle Fest will also be taking place that Saturday at the city's maintenance facility. Find more information, including waiver forms, registration, and acceptable recyclable items at cityofls.net/sweep. Are you looking for a change of pace in your career path? The City of Lee Summit is hosting a career fair and expo October 18th from 2 to 7 p.m. at the Gamber Community Center. The city offers rewarding public service jobs in a wide variety of fields. At the fair, engage with hiring departments, network, learn about open positions, and land your dream job. Explore career opportunities at lspeople.net. Join District 3 Council members Phyllis Edson and Mayor Pro Tem Beto Lopez for a town hall on October 19th at the training facility at the Lee Summit Police Department. Receive an update on major projects and visit with department representatives. This town hall is a come-and-go event. Unable to attend, the meeting will be live streamed on the city's YouTube channel. And the city, in partnership with the Missouri Department of Transportation, will be hosting an online public hearing October 3rd through the 17th for the Missouri 291 North Interchange at US 50 Highway Improvements Project. The public can view project plans and exhibits, submit comments, and ask questions. The project is estimated to begin in late summer or early fall of 2024. Thanks for listening and have a great week.
Traditionally, we think as police officers, those responding to law enforcement needs within the community. But honestly, we are there to serve our citizens, and our citizens do go into crisis. They do have mental health crises, and we're being called to those scenes on a regular basis. In order to help serve those citizens better, we did initiate the Crisis Intervention Team Program. These are officers that are specially trained to de-escalate crisis situations. Recently, we've brought co-responders onto the scene, licensed qualified mental health professionals housed within our police department, and they respond with those officers directly to those scenes where a crisis is occurring so they can interact with that citizen and get them the help they need right there on that scene.
The co-responders are either a bachelor or master level in a behavioral health related field. They wear plain clothes, they don't carry weapons or anything like that.
I have a police radio that I listen to all day. Listen for, those key words: mental health, behavioral health, crisis.
There's a lot of officers that just call for me. I have my own radio number.
I also have the ability to self-dispatch to them and say 982 is en route.
Officers en route, 914, Armstrong.
So typically I arrive after they've made it safe. I'll make contact and get kind of the rundown, and then I just kind of jump right in.
Like, hey, my name's Allison. I'm a mental health professional. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to take you to jail or arrest you.
Sometimes all a person needs is a voice, someone neutral, someone outside that, can listen. I do a lot of safety planning, including family, their support network, who's close to you. If they're home alone, who can come over and hang out with you today? Can we lock away your sharps? Can we put up your meds? Do you need meds? Can we get you over to the urgent care to get you assessed for your medications? Some of them also are like, oh, I'm so glad you came. This made me feel so much better.
Our main goal as co-responders is to, one, get people connected to the services that they need, and also divert from emergency rooms and jails.
And they almost get a different view of the police responding. That lets me know you care and the officers care.
Please, how can we help you?
My husband has...
In 2020, we had 722 mental health related calls for service. 2022, by that time, 1,479. These mental health related calls for service are increasing. How we're responding to that is increasing the number of crisis intervention team officers we have available, as well as the number of co-responders we have available to respond on these calls.
So what I think is important for the community to know about the co-responder program is that we're here, we exist. All you have to do when you call 911 is ask for us. You know, say, hey, I want a co-responder to respond to this crisis, and we'll go. I was really struggling about 8 years ago on my personal journey with mental health, and I met some amazing social workers and amazing programs that have helped me get to where I am today. I really couldn't see myself doing anything else. We want to help, and that's what we love to do.
So I had a client, we got a call, she had some suicidal ideations, and she really felt that she had nobody. And you know, and getting to know her story and getting to know who comes around and sees you, well then we found a support person and they responded immediately. And we made a plan. I called back and checked on her in an hour, and then I checked on her in 2 hours. We were able to get her into the additional services to where she talks to someone every week or more. I just took a person that really just thought they had nobody and nobody would show up for them, and show them you do. And you'll be amazed who is in your corner if you just simply say, I need a little help.
This month's Council Member Spotlight is all about Mayor Bill Baird. Check it out.
I have always volunteered in the community, and I was always really involved, but then I ran for school board. Whenever I got done with my term, I just felt like I had more to give. It's always been my goal from day one is to get everyone in the community connected and working together, and I always called it a spirit of community. Well, Mayor's 24/7, and I have a job. I've had to work really hard at compartmentalizing, is what I call it. So during this time, I'm going to do work. During this time, I'm going to be mayor, even though I can get a call at any moment about mayor stuff. And so I've had to even work that much harder at setting aside time for myself or for family. So I like to exercise, I like to work out. Hillary's my wife. She actually goes to work out with me as well. And we do like to go downtown to the shops. We make sure we maximize our time together. I mean, I've got 2 kids as well, and we spend a lot of time with them, or whatever time they will give us these days. And I have a dog. I think most people kind of know me know I have to have a dog. We have so much development going on, and we're growing fairly quickly, so we have a lot of infrastructure needs, and sometimes we have gaps in infrastructure, and we've always managed to get by, but with this kind of growth, we're really having to be creative and look at our options and just have a good plan for water, sewer, roads, and more. If we want to grow the most healthy way, we need a diverse economy. We do have a lot of retail that's opened up here, and there's been new construction for retail. We really need to focus in the future on bringing some, well-paying jobs here, good, strong employers that want to be located in this incredible community of now 101,000 people. A lot of our workforce does commute to work still, so they leave Lee Summit to go to work, and it'd be nice if we could keep some of those citizens right here in our community. The times I feel most proud are actually when I'm in the community and I see the community come together.
We have Buddy in the house. Mr. Mayor!
The tree lighting is always very fun. I always feel very proud. It's just a great warm feeling. The same thing goes for when the council will do something and we come together and make a good decision together. There's been a few of those that you go home feeling like a winner. And one of them was when we put together the downtown farmers market, when we bought the land, and it became real, all that hard work. But also the Diversity and Inclusion Commission, that was months and months of discussions and conversations that were really hard to have, and we went ahead and moved forward, and as a council all together, and I was very, very proud of that. And there are a few things that the citizens have done that have really helped us tremendously. First, in the middle of a pandemic, they passed a use tax, which is a way for us to collect sales tax whenever someone purchases online. That helps shore up our revenues so that we can continue providing those high quality services that our city provides. And it helps us take care of our employees, it helps us with our public safety and more. So I can't be more thankful to the citizens for that. Lee's Summit has the opportunity to have a major impact on the economy in the Kansas City area. We already, as an economy, are rolling along with such a high median income. We have an amazing workforce here that are paying taxes, they're paying property taxes, they're paying sales taxes, they're keeping our economy rolling, and we really are getting the attention of all our neighbors. And I think that what's going to happen is you're going to see the opportunity for us to really get everybody's attention when businesses start moving here, bigger businesses and more so. You should try to find a way to give back to the community, whether it's at the city level, citizen committees, or just participating in some of our community conversations whenever we have those opportunities. It's worth coming out of your shell or taking that leap of faith and just showing up and saying, what can I do or how can I help? The more that we do this together, the more wonderful the community is.
Thanks for watching the Lee Summit Rundown. I'm Laura Ingeman. See you next time.
afternoon. I would like to call the Wednesday, October 11th, 2023 Community and Economic Development Committee meeting to order. Could I have a roll call, please?
Chair Edson?
Here.
Vice Chair Pryor?
Here.
Councilmember Hodges?
Here.
Councilmember Felker?
Here.
Planning Commissioner Arth?
Here.
Thank you. It looks like all are present and accounted for. Councilmember Felker, I'm sorry. I would have waited. I couldn't remember if you were coming to, or not, so I apologize. Now that we've had the roll call, could I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Chair,
Councilmember Pryor.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Pryor and a second by Councilmember Hodges to approve the agenda. Could I have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Pryor?
Aye.
Councilmember Hodges?
Aye.
Councilmember Felker?
Aye.
Chair Edson?
Aye. And Commissioner Arth.
Oh, Planning Commissioner.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was on roll call. I apologize. We've changed your position. You're now voting. I apologize. I was actually, it moved on in my head. Do we have any public comments tonight? Okay, we had some submitted via email. Did everybody get a chance to see those from Mr. Dale Coy? All right, well, I won't bother reading them in public. Staff, did you all get a copy of those? Okay. Do you have a response, or could we talk about that at a later date? Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, matter of process, if it's a public comment, how do we make it public? That make sense?
Yeah.
How do we record it
What?
for
Put
the
them in
public?
the minutes? Put them in the action letter?
Is it actually just verbatim put in the action letter?
The city clerk provided me a statement that I could read.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Julie. Would you please do that?
The public comments were provided by Mr. Dale Coy via email to the city clerk's office on Monday, October 9th, 2023. The city clerk has provided members of the CEDC with a copy of Mr. Coy's comments prior to this meeting.
Okay, but those aren't,
Doesn't seem-
okay, thank you, Julie. So I think Councilmember Felker's point is, how do we make the comments public?
That's the intent of Mr. Coy sending it.
Yeah.
I'm asking.
Yeah. At this point in time, Mr. Elam, do you have a response? Or should I just, do I need to read them out loud at the end of the meeting?
So the general nature of the comments was related to how we handle sign violations as it is reported through our C-Click Fix program. There's some technical limitations with that program and the system that we use for the amount of communication and feedback. It's actually two separate systems between the C-Click Fix system and then our normal code violation system that's used through software called CityView. So the comments were received. They're very valid comments, and to work on a way to increase communication as to why a sign is removed or why a sign is not removed through the process.
And thank you for that. And my impression with the comments were those are more staff related than committee and council related. So it's more administrative work. Councilmember Felker, does that satisfy your question?
I think a public comment is one that's heard publicly. That's why I'm kind of struggling with, if we're treating it as a public comment. Sorry, I'm not trying to difficult. Ended it as if it, yes, our question is, we accept public comments by email. Matter of procedure, how do we make sure publicly available? This is not publicly available. I have no opinion. I know staff always is requests of citizens.
Okay, let's get to, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And you know what? That sounds like a great subject for
For
the
Rules Committee, we may have something to
Yeah.
meet about.
I mean, seriously, it really does. How about um, let's go ahead and start the business of the meeting.
Fine, totally
And then
fine.
when we get to roundtable, I'm happy to read his email out loud. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Everybody okay with that? All right, that'd be great, because I'm not prepared to do that at this point in time. Okay, the first item of business is approval of the September 13th Community and Economic Development Action Letter.
Chair,
Councilmember Felker.
move for the approval of the September 13th, 2023 Community Economic Development Action Letter.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Felker and a second by Councilmember Hodges to approve the September 13th Community and Economic Development Action Letter. Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Hodges?
Aye.
Councilmember Felker?
Aye.
Chair Edson?
Aye.
Vice Chair Pryor?
Aye.
Thank you. And the second item of business, TMP dash, oh, and the motion passes. The second item of business is TMP 2800, an ordinance amending Chapter 4, Alcoholic Beverages, Article 1, General, and Article 3, Licenses, Division 2, Types of Licenses, Fees of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Lee Summit, Missouri, to revise the provisions relating to the administration of liquor licenses by the city. Chief of Police.
Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. Travis Forbes, Chief of Police. We also oversee the liquor ordinances for the city as well. And in the licensing, we've run into some issues that we thought we would bring to the committee's attention to get direction. We proposed an ordinance to rectify these. More and more, we're running into businesses that don't fit the exemption of a restaurant that currently allows minors to be within the premises to serve alcohol, but they fit a different category that other cities have in place of amusement or recreational facilities. So these would be, as an example, a golf course. Golf Ranch on 40 Highway is an example of one that just opened at the old family golf park, of places that don't serve over 50% food, but when you combine their revenues of food and amusement for driving range or whatever they may do, they do meet that standard. So currently, you can have a liquor license and have minors on the premises. That's really the issue, is minors on the premises in a restaurant. If you prove over 50% sales of food, but we don't have any exemption for these businesses that are growing that may have pickleball in restaurants involved, or miniature cars that you can drive around tracks and food and that sort of thing. So we're trying to keep up with the modern businesses that are coming to our city requesting liquor licenses that don't fit that restaurant model, if that makes sense. So we have come up with a new type of license that mirrors a couple of our regional neighbors that would allow this. I did notice just prior to the meeting a couple scrivener's errors on pages 5, 6, and 7 with regard to reporting that says that they shall report to us to maintain an average of 50%. It should say or more, but it says of more of their total gross income and sales. So I did want to note that too. That's the general idea behind these revisions, is to propose a new type of license to accommodate these businesses. So I'll take any questions if you have them.
Questions for the chief? Councilmember Felker.
Thank you, Chair. So in it help me understand for the purposes of certifying, it's supposed to, the proprietor provide a verified statement.
It's really, we didn't want to require something as cumbersome as, what's the word for, where they have to go get them certified or something like that. We just wanted the ability to audit gross receipts for those businesses in as least cumbersome a way as possible, just to make sure that they're meeting the requirements of the ordinance to have sales that would allow us to issue those licenses, if that makes sense.
So, I mean, just in terms of thinking how this actually looks, it's a form provided.
Correct.
So this is a form we would create.
Yes.
And that would just allow them to fill in a blank.
Correct, yes, to
Check a
show us
box.
the sales. And obviously, you know, if they falsified those forms and they didn't match tax receipts, that would create a problem for that business. So we're trusting that they would probably be accurate in submitting these gross receipts to us.
And talk about defining
Yes, we had a lot of discussion about that. In some jurisdictions, they list certain businesses, but I could come up with several more that didn't really fit that definition. So we just wanted to leave a little bit of latitude to allow, like pickleball 20 years ago probably wouldn't have been considered a recreational activity that would be so popular as it is now. So we wanted to give that flexibility both now and in the future.
allowing a minor, this is not just 17. I read the existing ordinance.
Correct. Yeah, we really didn't change the employment regulations. This would just really accompany minors is what we're referring to, which currently all the restaurants in town who have liquor licenses have that capability.
That would be for entertainment, but there's the employment provision as well. And I know this is not part of what we're considering, except that it's mix here, minor revision of the section reference. But just so it's clear for the public, if we talk about a minor being employed at one of these facilities, the parent has to consent.
Yes.
Employment. There has to be something written on file with the employer to verify that that's the case.
Correct. Again, yeah, the only changes we're making to that particular section of the ordinance is putting the new license in there, so it allows the same employment rules that are currently applied to our restaurants in the city.
And not necessarily the subject of the amendments that were being proposed today, but in terms of that provision, is there effort made in that regard to verify with employers that if they have 16 to 17-year-olds on staff, that there's actually a statement or a letter of permission or whatever from the parent?
We don't have provisions for them to report like we do with the revenues and such. Complaint driven, certainly we would investigate any complaints, and we do get, not necessarily with regard to that provision, but we get complaints about liquor sales that we investigate periodically, for sure.
Thank you, Chief Forbes. Chair, I don't have any other questions at this point.
Thank you. I have a question, Chief, and perhaps this isn't the right place to ask. During COVID, we, under emergency ordinance or the emergency declaration, we relaxed some alcohol restrictions on a restaurant where you could pick up alcohol to go. And did we keep that in place, or did that expire?
I knew you might throw me when you said this
Okay.
might not be the place. I think we did answer that question here about 4 or 5 months ago. We
thought
had
it
the
was
same
still in
questions. And there was changes, I think, to the state liquor law, but I hate to be quoted on that. I'd like to
Okay,
research
well, I
that
was
more.
just wondering, as far as these places, whether or not people are going to be able to leave with their drinks in hand.
Whatever rule applies today, which I need to do a little research to our restaurants and such, would apply to this new license as well.
Okay.
So it's really kind of the same set of rules, just a new type of business that we're trying to account for.
Would you mind, like, sending the committee members just a quick
Absolutely.
email when you find that out?
Yes,
All
I
right.
will.
Thank you.
I should know, but COVID
Yeah.
messed a lot of things up, and
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure how they
Can't
landed.
say that I don't know.
Yes, it did.
I understand. Any more questions? All right. I don't have anything either. Can I have a motion on the ordinance?
Before we
Oh.
do the motion, do we need to, in terms of changing 50% of more to 50% or more in our paragraph C for all of the applicable sections?
What
Consider
page
it.
are you on?
So this is what Chief referenced. So in 4128, 4134, 4151, paragraph C, there's like a maintain an average of 50% or more of its total gross income. There's just like the second or third last line.
Oh, I have another lawyer in the room, so this I get fun. Yes, please.
Scott Eisen, Chief Counsel of Infrastructure and Recreation for the city. To answer your question, if the committee decides to amend it, they can. However, this is a scrivener's error that will be corrected before it goes to the full city council. And I think it's the understanding of the council members who are here today voting on this item of what the bill intends to read and what it will read before it goes to council. And I did see 3 different spots in there where was used instead of or, and we will make sure that's corrected shortly.
Oh, I need,
You okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Then, Councilmember Felker, can I have
Sure.
a motion on the ordinance?
Chair, I move that we advance to City Council with a recommendation for approval, TMP 2800, an ordinance amending Chapter 4 alcoholic beverages, Article 1 in general, and Article 3 licenses, Division 2 types of licenses, fees of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Lee Summit, Missouri to revise the provisions relating to the administration of liquor licenses by the city.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Felker and a second by Councilmember Hodges to recommend to council for approval TMP-2800. Could I have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Hodges,
Aye.
Councilmember Felker,
Aye.
Chair Edson.
Aye. And it moves to council. Thank you. Moving on, item C, TMP-2803. Oh, Chief.
I'm still here, Chair. Thank
Still
you.
here.
This particular ordinance change is really to remain consistent with changes to state law. Our Chief Counsel for Public Safety, Beth Morano, does a good job of trying to keep up with these changes, and she noticed that our current city ordinance regarding these sunshine law provisions weren't consistent with the changes to state law, particularly about investigative information, GPS data, information about educational institutions, and then information about suspicious activity reports that should remain confidential. Our city ordinance didn't mirror the current state law, so this is an effort to simply mirror the two.
Major Walters told me she was going to present on this.
I asked her and she declined, so she's going to take the hard part here in a little bit.
Are there any questions? Councilmember
Yes,
Felker.
so more, maybe a statement / question, but so we're just expanding to incorporate some additional language for different other purposes. We might hold a closed session or keep other information confidential.
That's correct, yes. And again, these are state law changes, nothing that we propose necessarily from our standpoint, but we're just trying to remain consistent with what the state says.
All right, if that's all the questions,
Chair,
Councilmember Hodges.
I move to recommend to City Council approval of agenda item number TMP-2803, an ordinance amending section 2-530 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Lee Summit, Missouri to update provisions pertaining to closed meetings, records, and votes to be in conformity with the most current revised version of Missouri's Sunshine Law. Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Hodges and a second by Councilmember Pryor to move TMP-2803 to council for approval. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Felker,
Aye.
Chair Edson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Hodges.
Aye.
And it moves to council. Thank you. Now, on to our presentations on the city's quality housing program and rental inspection. Mr. Johnson.
Evening, Chair, members of the CEDC, Joshua Johnson, Director of Development Services. I'm just going to be part of a team presenting this, really. So also presenting on this will be Steve Robbins, our Assistant Director of Field Services. He's going to help some history of the Quality Housing Program. And then if we need help with any questions, we'll have Tracy Deister, our Codes Administration Manager. He's been with the city almost 30 years. And Jessica Asher, our Neighborhood Services Manager. I'll kick things off. Oh, and last but not least, Major Nicole Walters will be talking about the police department's safe rental program. I'll kick things off in our discussion about our quality housing program and talk about where a lot of this stuff originated. So when the Ignite strategic plan was passed, a number of committees were formed, one of them on the Strong Neighborhoods and Housing Choice focus area. If you remember those C4 committees, it was community partners, citizens, council members, and city staff. And for the implementation plan on the Strong Neighborhoods and Housing Choice, a few things to look at out of that implementation committee were proactive code enforcement, and we've implemented that here. There's been, I think, 3 reports to the CEDC on that topic and 2 reports to the City Council on that topic. Implement proactive rental property business license enforcement. We're going to talk about that later tonight under the second agenda item. And evaluate a mandatory rental inspection program. We're going to talk about where that went and how we got to the quality housing program from that effort. From here, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Robbins, our Assistant Director of Field Services.
Evening. How's everybody doing tonight? So I'd just like to start out with a little bit of the history. So in 2018, the council recommended that Development Services try to develop a rental inspections program. So going from that, Development Services got together and they thought the best way to start that out would be by talking to the landlords and the property maintenance companies that work here in Lee Summit, and the landlords that do the rentals. So we decided to get together with them, and when we did, they pushed back a little bit on that. They did not want to have any mandatory inspections. They thought that we were kind of singling them out a little bit, so there was some pushback on that. So after processing that information, we went back and discussed it and decided that maybe a softer approach would be a better way to do that, and that could maybe benefit the entire community and not single out the rental, the landlords and the property maintenance companies. So now, instead of just having rental inspections, we decided that it would be a better way if we would educate the community and encourage homeowners while informing them of the codes. This was intended to be a preventative approach to avoid code violations for not just the rental properties, but also for all the housing that's in Lee Summit. So we went forward to that, and that would also improve the safety and the maintenance for not just, like I said, for the rentals and the regular homes. To participate in this, property owners or renters within the city, they were able to schedule a free inspection, and that would certify the living unit that meets the identified standards. The inspection would consist of a short visit from a neighborhood services officer that they would look at the property and give them suggestions on what could be done to maintain that and what would also help prevent them from having problems in the future. From there, in 2019, we adopted the property maintenance code, and that's basically, it was the minimum requirements for a maintenance of homes and buildings, of existing homes and buildings that are in Lee Summit. So, and about that time the city did a media blitz for quality housing, letting everyone know that we were starting that program. When we did that, we actually did a couple inspections. People called in, we did the inspections, and we also received some phone calls inquiring about it. That was in 2009.
Just to coming on. I apologize. Just to provide a little more info to what's saying, when we adopted the property maintenance code, it had additional standards on the interior of the residential structure, whether it's rental or owner occupied or really things like habitability. If you might imagine, bathtub, there's a minimum footage on a room. You have to have a certain amount of light in the room, things of that. That was part of us looking at this overall safe housing, kind of as an umbrella to this.
So shortly after we adopted that code, the COVID kind of came around shortly after that. And so there was a period that time from late 2019 all the way up to 2021 where we weren't really doing a whole lot with it. It wasn't, couldn't go in people's houses and they weren't calling for inspection or anything. We were only going off of what we were getting called about. So in 2021, we started the proactive code enforcement, and that we have 4 districts throughout the city. We have 4 neighborhood service officers, and each one of them have their own district. So starting in 2022, they went through the list. The goal was to inspect all the houses in the city, all the rental properties, and all the apartment complexes in their district. So, and those inspections weren't, they're not really detailed. They're kind of drive by the neighborhood, go through if we saw an inspection that needed to be done or a code violation, then we would bring that up to them, send them a notice of violation if we saw anything. So the type of inspections we do internal and, oh, I'm sorry, I left out a part. So in different parts of the city, we have HOAs, the newer neighborhoods and even some of the older neighborhoods have HOAs. Those neighborhoods are a little less susceptible to some of the code violations because they have requirements that they keep them up, that they maintain their property, and they have trash can rules and that sort of items. The areas that don't have the HOAs, they seem to be a little bit more susceptible to some of the violations that we might see. And so each district, depending on what district it is, the violations would be more or less for that time frame. Some of the external inspections, we do not require, no one's required to be there. We can just go by, do a quick inspection. We don't go on their property. We don't go into their backyards or anything. The only time we do that is if they call us, or if we can see something from their backyard, we would, call out the violation that we see. The internal inspections, the only ones that we did on those are when they would, either the renter or the homeowner or the landlord could call us and schedule an appointment, and one of our neighborhood service officers would go out and do the inspection to check the internal, the safety of the house, make sure that they have the proper garbage disposal, if they have a garbage disposal, if it works, if they have plumbing and that sort of thing. Then we would do that inspection, and they could get a certificate for that if they passed everything. We only did that, I think Tracy did that a couple of times before COVID, and we haven't done any of those since. Kind of to summarize this, it kind of just depends on what part of the city that you're talking about as to how many rental inspections we do. It's hard to identify what's a rental and what's not unless it's an apartment complex, or if it, sometimes you can tell if it's a LLC, then it's a rental. So, but the majority of the inspections that we're doing right now are, whether it's a rental or whether it's an apartment, it's mostly the 3 common ones that we have, which is the vegetation, trash, and inoperable vehicles. And that seems to be a common theme throughout, no matter what type of inspection it is.
Verify the quality housing inspections as we set them up before and after COVID. It's supposed to be a voluntary thing, like you have a certification that your unit was quality housing. That would mean we'd been inside, we had certified, you had the smoke monoxide detector, all that. It also involved an external inspection. And as Steve alluded to, we've really only done a couple of those. Might imagine it's a voluntary program.
kind of to finish up my part of the presentation, and you can ask some questions for me when we're done. So we met with the neighborhood service officers who do the inspections and who talk to and go in their districts. And right now, so from what they did in 2022, and then what they're doing now in 2020, they've noticed an increase in the properties being maintained better from what they did from 2022. So the inspections are less than what they had, and the violations are less in their areas that they're doing. And also, they're right now there's, and we don't have any hard fact numbers for this, but they're only getting about 2 or 3 a month, depending on the area, that are requesting internal inspections. Most everything we're doing are external right now. But when we do for the proactive that we're doing, we're getting about approximately a 90% response rate on the violations where they at least attempt to make the correction. So at this point, we've been, talking to the neighborhood service officers and Jessica, we've been pretty happy with the proactive part of it, what we're doing. And it's, like I said, it's not just the rentals, it's everything, everywhere. So we've been pretty happy with that. If you have any questions, I can try to answer them. If not, we can definitely.
At this point in the presentation, because we have a couple more parts, does anybody have any questions? Robbins, you want to keep? Yeah, Councilmember Pryor.
Thank you. So the inspections of apartments that you do, are they units that they tell you you can go in, or are they just random units that you choose and then you inspect those?
I think what Steve was getting at by that 2 to 3 a month comment, that's where the tenant calls us and says, hey, I need you guys to look at something's wrong in there.
Okay, so you don't just do random internal inspections?
No, we do not have a mandatory rental inspection program at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, next.
Here, I'm going to hand it over to Major Walters to talk about the PD's safe rental program.
Hey, hang on, Councilmember Pryor is gonna ask you another question.
Sure, go ahead.
There?
Thank you. Is that something that would be an option to check apartments? I've been getting a lot of emails regarding mold in people's apartments, and I know that's not anything that is necessarily anything that we can do codes-wise, but I feel like it would help. I don't even know the right word for the owner or for the people that maintain the apartments. I feel like it might be an incentive to not have mold in certain apartments if there was something in place that we could just randomly check apartment complexes without there having to be a complaint.
So a lot to unpack there, but so a mandatory rental inspection program would take a change to ordinance and a change in practice to how the city operates like that. Right now, we're purely complaint-based, reactive, if you will. So I think what you're describing is when you say randomly select is we would have a list of all the properties in the city, and you're saying rentals, and we'd have some sort of a lottery system where we'd inspect a percentage of those each year and we'd randomly pull those. And where I've seen it done other places, if you get kind of picked the next year and you're done the previous year, you go back in the hopper, so to speak, and another name is drawn. So am I capturing kind of what you asked about there?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, those would all be changes to city code to enact something like that. And that's part of the reason we're having the discussion tonight, is to get some guidance on where you'd like to spend our time researching and kind of what rabbit hole you want us to go down, I'll say.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, and rabbit holes, a good word. Well, because I'm thinking, then are you opening yourself up to privacy issues?
Yeah, Chair, if I may, I might ask Mr. Eisen to chime in a little bit on the difference between a random inspection of a private residence versus some other regulated industries.
Thank you.
Scott Eisen, Chief Counsel of Infrastructure and Recreation for the city. There are multiple limitations on a government's ability to enter a residence without permission. There are heavily regulated industries such as bars, things of that sort that allow us to enter them and their businesses in order to conduct inspections. However, when it comes to entering private residences, that is an issue, that the Constitution does not allow us to do without some type of permission or some other type of regulatory activity to enter those houses. So, although I haven't researched it completely, and this is the first it's came up for me right now, I can tell you, being a prosecutor for a number of years, normally you just cannot enter a residence without permission. I do know cities do have these type of inspection programs, but I'm assuming a lot of them rely upon the tenant themselves to allow somebody to enter into the premises in order to do that inspection. But just because the government can pass a law that allows us to enter it doesn't mean we can actually enter into a house. It would be unconstitutional potentially. But if that is something that council wants us to explore, we can definitely explore it more and provide a more detailed explanation about how one of these could be implemented if possible.
Okay, we've got a question for you, Councilmember Pryor.
Thank you. So a vacant apartment, though, does that apply to that same rule, or? No?
It would still apply to that same rule, and the Supreme Court in recent years has regulated even more so how the government can enter upon private properties, so much so that we are not even supposed to enter the curtilage of a property anymore without permission of the landowner itself. So even a vacant parcel could create some problems for us, and I can tell you I have handled the codes here in the city. And, that is an issue that comes up when it comes to the inspections of these properties. We have to do it from the right of way or potentially from a neighbor's property who gives us permission to be on their property in order to document violations of somebody else's property. And that's just for the outside of the property and the exterior. The inside is a completely different scenario when it comes to the reasonable expectation of privacy and the government entering upon the premises. So there would be some significant constitutional hurdles if we were to, try to implement a mandatory inspection process that does not rely upon some type of a consent of the homeowner themselves to enter upon those premises.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Major?
Major Nicole Walters, Police Department. I was beginning to think you didn't want to hear from me. What you have here, what slides I'm going to show you is kind of a snapshot of what the police department's program is with the safe rental properties. It serves to help us satisfy the tenant base with regards to criminal activity that occurs at rental properties. Let's see here. So the safe rental property is a partnership between the police department and the multi-housing programs. It serves to foster a safe community, develop a more stable and satisfied tenant base, increase property values, reduce crime and fear of crime, and improve safety for the tenants, landlords, and managers. Partnership requirements. As far as the police department goes, we support them by giving them monthly calls for service. We give them a free copy of police reports taken on property. Usually that's by request. List property on our police department website so that people who are interested in renting those apartments or at that location, they can see that they're part of our program. We provide the property with window stickers, and we provide them with a biannual safety newsletter. What we ask of the property managers is a signed terms of agreement, which you'll see on the next page, the use and enforce of the crime-free addendum, provide residents with a biannual safety newsletter. After hours, obviously, they can contact the police department or parole officer for issues that they might have. We also ask them to maintain a contact list for us at the police department, the door entry codes, and a map of the property so that if there's an emergency situation, we can contact someone and get in there and help as needed. Here is the crime-free lease addendum and the terms of agreement. So this is something that tenants would also sign, and it would serve to help the property managers evict if necessary based on criminal activity that's occurring on the property. And currently, we have active participation from 18 of approximately 42 multi-unit housing properties. We had 5 new properties join in the past 60 days. We have some goals at the police department regarding looking ahead. We'd like 75% or more involvement with our rental properties. We'd like to continue to launch our Lee Summit Safe Neighborhoods and our Lee Summit Safe Businesses programs. Those are two things that are pending and in the works. And the ability to use existing apps or websites to push information to residents real time. We do a lot of that with social media as it is. And then we also, which is not on here, utilize our SNAP program. So monthly, we look at different locations within the city, and then we send people out for our safe, secure neighborhoods and property program. We send officers out in those locations. We've had success. We've identified some local rental properties where we've needed to implement that and put some manpower, and we've seen some success where we've had no stealings or theft from autos or anything like that during the month that we were able to do that. So that is the end of that presentation. Programs are managed by our community interaction officers. So questions, I'll take them.
Any questions? Well, I'm going to start. That was a very distinctive presentation, and I appreciate that. Didn't you all, maybe it was before this program, work with landlord to like fix code violations? Didn't the police department do that? Like
Sergeant
training
Depew
and-
would may be able to speak more to it, but I think you're thinking of the CEPTED program maybe, possibly, where we would go out and we would work with them and show them different things about the property that could be enhanced as far as the lighting, things like that, that can make it safer, and reduce kind of that target-rich environment, if you will. But I'm not sure, Sergeant Depew, if you have any additional.
Good evening, Council. Sergeant Depew, Lee Summit Police Department. Both of the community interaction officers work under my supervision. Some of the programs you might be thinking of there, Councilman, is previously we had the Safe Community Task Force, which dealt with some of these codes issues, which dealt with the Article 9 businesses and some of those. So there have been other iterations of this program, and even our crime reduction team has helped us target specific areas, clean up different properties, and reduce crime on property, forming landlord-tenant, associations, things.
Okay, I just wondered because
Previously.
I remember those were pretty successful programs. So I was trying to figure out if these were all being merged together, I guess.
I would say yes, based on past successes, this will be the current iteration of the program as it goes forward.
Okay. Mr. Elam, are you wanting to jump in?
Yeah, just to comment a little bit on the CEPTED, crime prevention through environmental design. That is a part of our Unified Development Ordinance. So there are certain businesses and industries that have a very specific type of review and very specific requirements related to the environmental design associated with it. And I use the term environmental design meaning not necessarily stormwater, but the lighting and things like that. View sheds and angles and surveillance and things along those lines. So that is a part of our Unified Development Ordinance.
Okay, thank you. And Major, I think it's great you've had 5 sign up in the past 60 days. That's awesome. Are you finding that these are older properties or just all properties?
It really varies. I would direct you to look at which properties are on that through the website, because you can see exactly which properties. I wouldn't want to necessarily say that out here. But it really is a range. What we struggle with is the property managers. They seem to change often. And so getting that buy-in and having to rebuild that relationship is where we sometimes struggle with maintaining those relationships. So that's just something we have to continue to work on.
Questions, comments?
Mayor?
Yes.
I have a
Council
couple
Commissioner.
questions. When you form this partnership with, I would say the property managers, things like trespassing, after hours trespassing, is that something that you encourage the property management company to deal with their own security? Or I guess what defines what?
I
where you would
guess
get involved?
depends on if they've been trespassed in the past and what kind of situation we're dealing with. Often, if they're part of the Safe Rental Property program, we're going to send them those reports. The criminal activity that's related to that applies to the resident, any household guests. So it applies across the board, and it just really depends on how they're willing to enforce that.
Okay. And then I just wondered, it seems, and I'm not going to say this about every property, but it seems I know of hesitation of property managers to put in surveillance cameras. um, with, they have car thefts, and I don't know if they seem to want to stay away from that for liability reasons, but it would seem that it would be a good idea as far as helping you find people who steal vehicles. But I just didn't know if that's an issue, or if you guys encourage surveillance like that, or if you really have an
I
opinion.
think, you know, we encourage any participation in partnership that we would have with them and helping them help themselves, if you will. So we would always encourage them if they were to have some type of surveillance camera or security camera on site. I mean, that keeps everyone safer. It allows people to know it's a deterrent. So we would encourage that, yes.
Okay, thanks.
All right. I think you're off the hook for now.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, you back up?
So I think this next discussion on rental licensing may be what started this topic in general, because we were talking about property managers, things of that nature. And to piggyback off of what Major Walters said, one issue we have in this area is getting a local contact. So when we start seeing, you know, landscaping not being taken care of, things of that nature, and this applies through all our types of violations. Sometimes it's like a trust or an LLC, and it's hard to really get a local contact. And that makes us getting corrective action on violations, that makes that very tough. So, as I launch into this, excuse me, this really relates to a business license. Any type of a rental requires a business license. It's just, you know, under 4, it's free. So it's really just filling out paperwork. And my understanding of that provision was really done to protect kind of the small operators, things like that. And as I say here, our goal, as I mentioned before I even launched into this, was we want a local contact or an actual owner so we can get corrective action. And really, like I said, that local contact is kind of key to getting corrective action. I just said that 2 different ways, I apologize. Right now, we estimate that participation is less than 5%. I'm giving you stats that are not nearly as good as PD's, but it's the reality right now. And capturing rentals that are single family homes is very challenging. One way, you know, we've thought of doing that is, and this is not definitive, is I know that when somebody signs up for their water bill, they do ask, hey, is this a rental? Are you the owner? Theoretically, we could get that off there, but I don't have a lot of trust in that, because you don't know kind of, you know, if somebody's telling the truth or not. And also when we get code enforcement complaints, we don't say, do you think this person's a renter that you're complaining about, or do you think they're an owner? So really that becomes an issue. And I think that we have probably a lot more single family homes being rented than we probably realize. I'm being very subjective here because we just don't know really. And that's also going to make this a tricky thing to get licensing on, because as I mentioned before, that 0 to 3 rental owner, I think those are going to be harder to capture, but it's definitely something I think we could strategize a crackdown on, if you will. And it was in that Ignite strategic plan. It was one of the goals, is to be more proactive about rental licensing enforcement. So I just wanted to report on that and how that works and our current participation rate. And that is the conclusion to my presentation on rental licensing. There is something to it, but it's actually just that 0 to 3, and the other color is 4 or more. And I will say, like your bigger companies, like your Amly that manages larger apartment complexes, I believe they only need 1 rental license for everything they manage. So as long as we have 1 local contact we can get to say, hey, X, Y, and Z apartment, we need you to trim the weeds, and then your other one over here, we need you to do this. As long as we're getting results with that, that would work fine, but accurate, so. Yes, that's 2 units.
Councilmember Pryor?
Thank you. So what if it is an out-of-town investor and you can't get a hold of the out-of-town investor or the out-of-town owner and you can't get a hold of them? Then do we have a plan in place to
So-
pursue that at all?
So the procedure right now would be if we don't get corrective action on a violation, we would try to get a contact info. We would basically the process is we take them to court, but we can't take them to court unless we know who the actual owner is. So Jessica is our neighborhood services manager. She'll help you out with clarification.
It really depends on the violation. If it's something that we can abate through our contractor, we'll take care of it. If it's trash or the grass is overgrown, we can go out there and abate those things. If it's inside the unit, if there's a water leak like that, with an apartment complex, it's a little easier. They can maybe move them to a different unit while they're fixing it, or the response is a little faster. A single family home, we're going to seek out the property owner, whether they're the same as the property management company. A lot of times they're different contacts. And taking them to court and prosecuting them is difficult at the municipal level. A lot of times it just comes down to their lease has run out and they move out. Once that property is vacant, then the property owner will go ahead and enter that property and rehab it for their next tenant. And that's a lot of times how it is resolved.
Do we have like a fine in place for not?
For like non-compliance?
Mm-hmm.
We don't fine through neighborhood services. We would send it to court and the judge would issue a fine.
Okay, thank you.
But one of the issues with the fine is we still have to find out who the property owner and who we have to fine, I think. Is that right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to keep them accountable, especially not to Pathlight LLC comes to mind as a rental company that's out of state. I think they're located in Chicago, but they own a lot of property in Lee Summit. A lot of times it's us leaving a request on their mailbox or in their voicemail, hoping somebody will through fix that issue, but we don't ever have a name to take to
So is there anything like we can do as a council to make that process easier? Like anything that?
I think we would probably have to do some more research on our end.
So about, say, 6 months ago, I used to handle the code enforcement cases for the prosecutor's office, and I still am in the prosecutor's office when they need assistance. So I have firsthand dealings with this issue on the municipal court side. As Jessica said, it is very, very difficult for us sometimes to find an owner of a property. If we know who owns that property and we have some identifiers for that owner, then we can file an information with the court and prosecute that individual or even that company if need be. But finding that owner is very, very difficult, especially how Missouri allows limited liability companies to be set up. One way to alleviate that would be some type of process that would require an ordinance change or some type of registration of those properties so we know who the owner of that property is and who the actual person is who owns it or who the accountable person is. If we do not know who that person is and we cannot have any identifiers for that individual, it does make it extremely difficult, if not impossible, because there are certain requirements in order for us to file an information in municipal court to even start that process through municipal court. So there are some possible ways that we can do it in order to increase the enforcement when we need to increase the enforcement, but it all comes from knowing who that owner is. Now, if it is a tenant in that property and they are creating the code violation, then we can prosecute that tenant for creating that problem. But if we do not, if it is a property that is just in disrepair, that's not being rented out, or potentially the tenant is not causing the issue, say an exterior issue with siding or something like that that they're not responsible for, then it would be something that would fall upon the owner of the property itself. So it would require some type of ordinance change to allow us to know who the owner is. As far as the process in municipal court, It's the same process I say to say if you were to get a traffic ticket in the city. There's no fine per se that attaches to that the police officer says, pay me this amount of money, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. It all goes to the municipal court. And then it's a matter of negotiations between the prosecutor and the defendant in the case, or potentially up to the judge also to determine what type of fine. In Missouri, after the changes in the law that came about after Senate Bill 5, that was probably in 2017 or 2016, code violations are actually not jailable offenses in Missouri. It's only a fine, and the fine only stair steps up a certain amount of money after each conviction. So although there are some violations that we can put somebody in jail for, Senate Bill 5 in Missouri that went into effect, like I said, in 2016, 2017, does not allow us to jail somebody for a code violation. It is a fine, and the maximum amount of the fine is set by state statute also. So we are somewhat limited by state statute also when it comes to municipal court proceedings on how we can get somebody to come into compliance. Now, we can put somebody on probation. A condition of probation might be to fix the problems, but there are multiple levels in place that actually prevent us from sometimes making the changes that are needed or taking the corrective action that's needed in these code cases, not only when it comes to rental property, but also in general when it comes to all properties that are within the city. So hopefully that answers some of your questions. I'd be happy to answer any more that you have on the court process or anything like that. So.
Thank you very much. I wouldn't mind visiting the whole ordinance change thing if it makes that process easier.
Okay.
Not right now.
Okay.
Eventually.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Felker.
Sorry, to go back to that conversation about and I don't practice in municipal court, so I don't know. There may be some things that I don't know. Serving our LLC owners, we can only serve the registered agent. That's not. As long as we locate who the registered agent is, get service on them.
We still have to have an individual to charge, and a registered agent is not the individual who has the ownership of the company itself. Now, in a civil context, we can serve the registered agent in order to get service on somebody in a civil context. I think that's what you're probably thinking of for a lawsuit or something like that, how we would serve the registered agent. But when we're talking about an actual criminal charge that's filed, although it be a quasi-criminal in nature since it's for municipal court, we have to have the individual who has the ownership interest in it,
So
not the registered agent.
Distinction here is, it's criminal in nature.
That is
So
correct.
and talking about crimes here, I like it. Not necessarily a civil penalty.
That is correct. I mean, the city could always, go an injunctive route or do something through the state courts in order to remedy a violation, but that would be very time consuming, very expensive to the city, and probably not get us to the point where we need to be, because we would most likely abate that ourselves through some type of administrative process. We can use an administrative search warrant potentially here within the city. We can just abate it ourselves. Usually we do that for grass and other type of nuisances that exist on the exterior of property. But when it comes to actually filing a criminal case, or what the courts have called a quasi-criminal case, since it is municipal court, we do have to know who the owner is and have some type of identifier on them in order to prosecute them in municipal court.
White collar crime.
Yeah,
because it's a company.
That's
owns
correct.
it.
I mean, I spent most of my career as a state prosecutor, and obviously I had a lot more reach as a state prosecutor when it came to prosecuting individuals. Unfortunately, municipal court, we don't have that same power in order to prosecute individuals, which makes it more difficult in these cases, especially when the responsibility for the prosecution falls on the cities, but we really don't have the same authority or the same power to go after these individuals as, say, the state prosecutor would.
So like a HOA, if it has a violation of their covenants, they may remedy it, and then they just lien the property. So obviously it's a little different. We don't have a similar mechanism. Is that inaccurate, or is that an option, something like that?
It's similar in nature. I mean, for an HOA, when they have a violation of their covenants, they would go through court and get some type of declaratory judgment or some type of injunction and then place a lien on the property based upon that judgment. What we can do here in the city is when we abate a nuisance, we will place a lien on that property for the cost of the abatements that were conducted by the city. Again, a normal case is the mowing of grass.
Right.
And we will do it, and we do work with Jackson County on that, and they do place these liens on the tax bills from everything that I have seen. And we actually do get money also from individuals through the abatement process and by putting liens. So we do get paid back with that. But again, that's usually exterior issues that we can remedy safely without putting the city in a situation where we might be sued, such as going into a property, something like that, where we might create more of an issue for the city than we're trying to solve. But, you know, we have multiple layers of enforcement, you know, from abatement ourselves to some type of injunction through the state courts. They're using our municipal court system, you know, but they all have certain limitations in place and certain needs that need to be met in order for us to proceed with a case through that route.
That's good to know. I mean, that there is a recovery mechanism. I assume, though, that the actual recovery is quite delayed, meaning collecting on that essentially lien against the property is something that's going to happen either at a tax sale or its actual sale of the property.
That is correct. And Jackson County, being a charter form of government, usually has a 3-year span before they will do a tax sale on a property. So somebody can be delinquent for multiple years until we actually get the money if they do pay that. Sometimes through a tax sale, our priority, you know, we're not a creditor who has some type of priority in a tax sale. So there's potential we might not get it through a tax sale also. You know, but yes, we do get paid. I mean, there's one specific case that I know of that we have constantly mowed somebody's grass time after time after time again. And I think we have finally got payment on that through the abatement process through the taxing put on the property itself. I should say the fee that we put on the property itself that's paid through the taxes through the collector's office.
Well, I appreciate this helping educate me a little bit on municipal violation being a criminal, quasi-criminal matter, and the distinction of serving. You know, I have clients served every day for civil matters, where my firm is a registered agent, right? So, and so for the benefit of the committee, like this is distinct. Because what you're saying is for a municipal matter to go forward that's quasi-criminal, you have to actually reach the person. And that can be pretty well protected in Missouri. They don't have to disclose who the owner is online. It's be completely anonymous. So
that is correct.
Well, and going back to your comment about HOAs and putting a lien on them, I don't think there are a lot of HOAs now that would have the military resources to do that. A lot of them are small, you know, and they just collect money for maybe a neighborhood trash service. And some of the complaints I've gotten are from HOAs who are like, these companies are buying up houses in our neighborhood. We don't know who to contact. And so that's where a lot of this is coming from.
Yeah, I can tell you HOAs do have that same problem as far as finding who the owner is. It was very prevalent when the recession hit and a lot of houses were foreclosed upon and nobody actually knew who owned the properties. Even the banks didn't know who owned the properties. So it was a prevalent situation. Fortunately, we're not in that same time frame right now. So we don't have these foreclosed properties that we're trying to, you know, find out who the owner is. But it was a big violation back then. And I can tell you, you know, the way a lot of HOAs work that I've seen around here is they just want the nuisance remedy. They want to work with the tenant in order to find a solution to the problem. And I can tell you through municipal court, that was the same philosophy that I took, was trying to find a problem. Not interested in finding somebody money when they can just fix the problem, because most of the time the problem comes from in a tenant occupied place. They just don't have the money to fix it potentially. So it's more about fixing the nuisance so the nuisance doesn't happen again versus finding them. So I can tell you that's the approach that I took, and I think the new assistant prosecutor takes that same approach when it comes to these cases, since it is just a nuisance issue for the city that we just want resolved.
Okay. So, Mr. Elam and Mr. Johnson, Mr. Johnson, you kind of squashed both these presentations together, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong because I see two questions. So one question is on the quality housing program and rental inspections, whether or not we keep it voluntary or make it a mandatory program. Is that the question you're asking?
Yes.
Yes. And I'll open that up for discussion. We'll stick with that. My viewpoint is it seems like it's doing really well as a voluntary program. Let's give it some time to develop and see how well it does. I hate to put mandatory programs on property owners, but I'll open it up for discussion. Councilmember Felker.
I'll agree with your sentiments.
Okay.
That
I'll just.
Yeah, I would agree too.
Councilmember Pryor.
Would it just be mandatory on rental?
Oh, yes. Yes, it'd stay the same as it is. Josh?
Well, I think I know where Councilmember Pryor might be going, and it's
Or-
hard to divorce this from the other issue of requiring an owner registration that Mr. Eisen mentioned, where it would require a change to city code. So I think I understand the sentiments of the rest of the council, but I also think that might be something you're concerned about, which informs this issue.
Yes. Yeah, I mean,
Okay, I need clarification on what you-
I will,
make the multi-unit unit, keep it the quality housing program and rental inspection as is.
I guess I agree. We'll keep it, I mean, I guess to keep it as is and kind of see, I guess you said a lot more people as of recently. Well, you guys want to say something, so.
Yes, I'll jump in here and we threw a lot of different programs out at you tonight that are all related, but they're all kind of separate programs. So one of the things that I think we've talked about is how do we make these a little bit more consistent and I want to say reduce the number of programs, but combine them together so we're being as effective as we can be on different things. So the quality housing program, for example, that we started with, that was a program that got started that has stalled because of COVID, just to be honest. We have a path where we could abandon that program completely, or we could look at how do we incorporate portions of the SNAP program into that, or do we have a keep the SNAP program, which is the separate program, that's really designed for multi-unit apartment complexes. That's not really designed for your duplex, triplex, your single family area. That's specifically working with the larger multifamily complexes. So do we want to focus our efforts on those, or do we want to see what we can have that kind of maybe tries to touch all of those bases on either a mandatory or a voluntary basis?
So, okay. Well, I think you've got, the incorporating the SNAP program and making those changes to me is staff decisions. So it seems to me are we answering the question, do we want to keep it a multifamily voluntary program at this point and staff makes changes as they see fit, or do we want to make it mandatory? And at this point, what I'm hearing from the first half of the presentation, I'm hearing from committee members is it seems to be doing really well, even COVID. Let's keep it voluntary, but then let's talk about the rental licensing for single family homes and see if we can take a direction, whatever that direction is, to fix that.
Yeah, that's generally what I'm hearing from the committee right now, and I need to make a correction. I kept saying SNAP, and I really meant the Safe Rental Program. So I got those two. We talked about a lot of programs, and I'm getting
Oh,
the
I thought you were
acronyms.
going to incorporate the SNAP into the safe rental. I just thought,
That's
yeah.
good. So yeah, what I'm hearing is let's continue and maybe breathe a little bit of life into the quality housing program and see if we can get some more participation in that. But in a simultaneous path, we need to look at how we can boost our ordinances in order to really get that property register and that local contact that a lot more solidified, for lack of a better term.
Commissioner Arth, you have a question?
I have a question. On the licensing, it's under 4. You don't have to have a license.
No, you
4
have
and
to have a
under.
license. It's just free.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. Okay. Because I was going to say, if then we could prorate it maybe to make it more affordable, but you've already done that. Okay.
And if I may,
Yeah.
the license is $50.
Chair,
Councilmember Felker.
can I just interject? This is and maybe I need to clean my ears out, but I've never heard before. I've always heard what Commissioner Arth just said, that you didn't have to have one under 4. I feel like it's actually been presented at least once here that way, if not anything, maybe verbally. So I'm not being critical. I'm just saying, like, I think that's a common understanding. I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just saying, like, this is the first day that I've registered in my own mind, maybe it's just me, that everyone has a license. It's always been represented. When we had a property, well, this has been a committee or two ago, we had a certain local property manager in town, and we talked about it as if less than 4, you didn't have to have one. So someone said it, or I heard, or I internalized it incorrectly. So I think that's a good thing to help people understand. Any business that's in the city of Lee Summit, operating business, whether incorporated as a LLC, corporation, or a sole proprietorship, which doesn't have the veneer of an entity around it, needs a license.
That's correct. Even if you have a rental property, you need a business license for that. The only thing that changes is the price of that. And it's, if you have 4 units or less, there is no fee. If you have 5 units, or if you have 350 units, it is $50.
And it's just since we're the community economic development committee, we should understand this. Any business, not just rental property businesses, any business. I want to sell recycled plastic. I want to sell paper clips, and I've got a business. Technically, I should be licensed with the city.
Technically, I'll say technically for the most part, there are certain businesses that do not require a city license because they are preempted by state licensure requirements.
Okay.
And if you have a business that's located inside of the city limits, with an office, you generally need a business license. If you are doing business inside of the city, you generally need a business license.
Got it. Thanks.
Member Hodges, did you have anything to add to this discussion? No? Councilmember Pryor.
I do, but I feel like I always have something to add, so maybe I shouldn't. But okay, so just really quick. So for clarification purposes, SNAP does go into neighborhoods. It's not just rental. I already know, but just in case anyone's confused, could you identify what exactly
Major
SNAP
Nicole
is?
Walters, Police Department. SNAP is citywide, so we use intelligence information to direct us kind of on a patrol plan on what to do based on criminal activity within the whole city. So at times, it will identify a rental property, large apartment complex that we may need to do, and so that's just another part of one of our things that we do at the police department to assist with rental properties and keeping them safe.
Yeah, and I like SNAP. I know during our town hall they were talking about there was one maybe towards Woods Chapel you guys were doing, and it was
Correct.
doing really well. And then there was another one near Lowenstein you guys were going to go to next, I think. So yeah, it's working.
Hopefully you'll see them in the car washes soon too.
Oh, wow. Neat. And then so I guess based on what Mr. Elam said, we'll wait. I think it's a good idea to wait and kind of see how that program does, but also visit the registration as far as, yeah.
Rentals,
Mhm,
okay.
as far as
Let me
rentals,
see if
yeah.
this
Mr. Johnson.
captures the general sentiment. Leave the quality housing program voluntary, but I have circled in my notes here, find owners. Get a better way to find owners. And I can work on that with Mr. Eisen, or Steve or Jessica can work.
Well, and I don't know that it's just on the rentals, especially the single family, that it's just find owners as much as maybe research options of what we can do when we get too many complaints and we're beyond code violations, I think. Yeah. Everybody good with that? Councilmember Pryor has another question.
I'm sorry. So this is back to, I know Mr. Elam's probably going to roll his eyes when I ask this question, but the mold question again. I know that it's not defined as a code violation. What, I know in one of the emails I got, they contacted Jackson County Health Department and they basically said there's nothing we can do. And I know you laid out the steps that that people need to take. But is there anything that we can do for mold? I mean, is that just a thing that people can complain to us, but there's just really absolutely nothing we can ever really do?
Jessica Asher, Neighborhood Services Manager. So with mold, we don't have an ordinance to enforce mold remediation or mitigation for it. There's no Missouri or federal standard or guidelines out there that states what is an acceptable level of mold, what the standards are. So we don't have any guidance from that perspective. If there's an underlying issue that's causing the mold, there's a water leak or door isn't shutting or there's windows leaking, we can go address those issues that have caused the mold.
So when I get the emails, because I've gotten 2 completely unrelated. Well, actually, I've gotten 3 lately because I got another one today, but just completely unrelated at different places about mold. So whenever they email, should I just ask for the cause and then direct them to you, or?
If we get a mold complaint, we'll always go check it out and see if there's something that we can address that's causing the issue that they've noticed. But as far as the mold, we encourage them to get a mold test kit, talk to their property owner. But I know Jackson County also just refers you to the state. I mean, more of a civil matter at that point. But again, we'll always go check it out and see if there are other underlying violations.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, so are you guys good? You think you have semi-clear direction? Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to roundtable, and I'm gonna read Mr. Coy's public comment. This is from Dale Coy, who lives here in Lee Summit. When I observe an advertising sign on the side of the road, I report it using the city website and report a concern. I then receive a reply that says, "Thank you for reporting your concern to the City of Lee Summit Development Services Department. We have opened up a case on this matter and a neighborhood services officer will be out to inspect the concern within 5 business days." That's it, unless I choose after 5 business days to call during business hours on a business day to ask for an update. And if I do that, it causes someone on staff to interrupt other work and do research. I suggest that it would be better to have a personalized reply after the officer examines the situation that might say, yes, that sign was improper because, and it has been removed, or that sign is allowed under city codes because, or that sign is allowed but was required to be moved back from the city right away, or that sign was not there when we inspected, or whatever would be informative. I understand this would take some time by the officer, but it would encourage people to report and would educate people on what not to report because it's allowable. Please consider recommending that change in procedure. So I know staff has a copy of that and looking into it, and now it's on the record and we're all good. Any other roundtable?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate you reading that again. I really wouldn't care what the substance of it is, but I think that's good question. How do we deal with public comments sent by email, and how do we make them public? Might have everything to do in our committee now. We get to go back to work. So I do have just a quick matter. So I think we all know we're meeting next week with Planning Commission. And then I think we are following that with a work session with the current board for the Economic Development Corporation here in Lee Summit. And I just wanted to say to our committee members I think this is an opportunity for us to have a frank conversation with them, to share our thoughts on economic development and hopefully have a good dialogue. And I would just also say that it's certainly something I'm going to do, which is just take time to review the strategic plan that actually was commissioned in part by EDC, and I believe the city and other, we'll say PSAs, I'll use that term loosely, worked on it several years ago. I think that may be right, back we'll say 2021 or maybe it's still 2022 actually. But just encourage us as committee members, since we're supposed to kind of bring our best game as members of this committee, I think, to the broader council, to review that strategic plan, obviously review the things that we've had our more recent consultant prepare, so we can have a very rich conversation about the future of economic development in Lee Summit.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Hodges, you have anything? Councilmember Breyer?
Nope, I don't.
Commissioner Arth? Staff, you all having a roundtable?
Just if anybody has any mold complaints or anything like that, please forward them on to onto our office, and we'll make sure that they get taken into account and they're looked at. Again, knowing the limitations that we have on being able to handle that, we do investigate those to the best that we can. Other than that, no other comments.
Councilmember Pryor has her finger on the button.
I know, I'm so sorry. Okay, so just so people know, so what if someone has emailed me and they said they want to remain anonymous? Is that something you guys can do? I know that you guys can't go into a unit, or that they can't go into a unit if they want to remain anonymous, but
That's correct. If they want to remain anonymous and they've got a mold complaint on the inside of the home or whatever structure it is, we won't be able to do anything about that. We can go look at the exterior of the property if we know which property it is to be able to see what that is.
Okay.
But we would encourage them to talk with us about going inside the home to be able to help identify the source.
Okay, thank you.
Y'all don't have anything? I asked that. Okay, well, we are adjourned at 6:24. Thank you.